All right. Shalom, shalom. First and foremost, we want to give all praise, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Ha, Rakak, Wadash. Double honors, of course, to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone who rule well. Honors to you, Akim, out there doing this work of truth and sincerity. Present your bodies a living sacrifice to bring this truth to the hopeful elect/elect Akim that is scattered across the four winds of the globe. Man, there's stuff in here, so like it. I'm in a sincere shalom to the hopeful 1/3. I'm gonna jump right into it. As you see with the article, we got rumors of wars, man. And real quick, just so we can, further edify the video I just recently did. It's an article talking about a magnitude 4.2 earthquake strikes near Yellowstone National Park out there in Wyoming. So, as you can see, man, Matthew 24 is clearly in effect. You see what I'm saying? This mean, which means we're in the beginning of the end, so to speak, because the principal prophecy of the time has to really be the MOTB, pursuing to Revelation chapter 13, verse 16 on down. You see what I'm saying? However, there are other prophecies that coincide with that prophecy, and then the final prophecy being, the world finally seeing those thermonuclear missiles being launched on Babylon, America, and a few other, spots throughout the globe, But as you can see, I'm on, of course, endtimeheadlines.org, which, y'all should be checking out, amongst other reputable sites like RT, as well as, any news, I guess you could say reputable news source that's not like the National Enquirer, basically, where they're just drafting up false stories. And that's not to say, that, we can't be, beguiled. However, you know what I'm saying? The Most High, we know when prophecies are actually hitting. You see what I'm saying? And we're just, stay away from shit that you know to be false that's been exposed. You know what I'm saying? If you can, you know what I'm saying? Because we can't really verify everybody's sources. We don't have any brothers that are just like, oh, yep, I see these guys off the border of Taiwan, and they are definitely flying their planes and getting ready. And yeah, we don't have that, but this is just signs of the times that speak to the prophecies and that speak to the scriptures, But anyways, as you see with the title of the article, it says rumors of war. You see what I'm saying? So already you should be thinking Matthew 24, man. It says China surrounds Taiwan for massive military invasion rehearsal drills. China being right now is the number one economy on the planet, fastest growing economy on the planet. You see what I'm saying? It's I hate to say it, but it's kind of light years ahead of India, which has kind of been a shaky U.S. ally due to the fact that they have a similar population size to China and they border each other as well. But the reason, you're kind of seeing this right now is because of the fact that, these presidents, and their military advisors, they sit back and they watch. You see what I'm saying? Even the Taliban, even, third world guerrillas, this is how they're able to, somewhat sustain themselves. They will watch you. They will watch your tactics. You see what I'm saying? A lot of the firefights you get into are just to see, in Afghanistan and Iraq, were just to see, how people are going to respond. You see, because they know they're not going to heads up beat the U.S. So they're like, okay, let's see how they respond to this. Let's see how they respond to that. Do they stop for uh, every time something looks like an IED, or they think it could be an IED, or do they change up their tactics, this, that, and the third? And if, so third world countries are doing this, one of two things are happening. Either people are smarter than we assume, or, they're being trained by other foreign forces. You see what I'm saying? And we have to remember that the CIA did help the Taliban when they were invaded in Afghanistan by, the Russian. You see, right before the collapse of the Soviet Union. But however, to get back to the point, you know, leaders, and especially these first world countries, with a lot of power and a lot of money and a lot of economic influence, so such as a Russia or a China or, the US or the UK. You see what I'm saying? Or Germany. You see what I'm saying? They sit back and they watch. So right now what you're seeing is you're seeing the Chinese government, led by Xi Jinping. You see what I'm saying? Who's kind of in the position of a Putin. He's going to be the leader till he dies, which essentially it makes for a more stable country. You just have to deal with it. Your leader is going to be Putin till he dies, unless somebody were to, somehow they do a coup against him or do a coup against Xi Jinping. But these guys are experts. You see what I'm saying? Expertly trained, especially Putin from the KGB, at finding out who your enemies are, finding out who your dissenters are, finding out if they're an actual political threat. Do they just not agree with you on this climate change bill, or is it that they want your position and your power? You see, and Putin's an expert at that. However, back to the point, we have to look at, this article for what it is. It's saying that the Chinese military is surrounding Taiwan, and they've been wanting to take back Taiwan, which, to the Chinese in the Olympics, there's no Taiwan that competes in the Olympics. It's called Chinese Taipei. You see what I'm saying? Because the Chinese have a claim to the landmass of Taiwan. Now, Taiwan is a huge country in and of its own. You see what I'm saying? Plus, they have resources. Plus, they have a Mandarin speaking population there. So, to the Chinese and Xi Jinping, that's their people. You see what I'm saying? They're not calling themselves Vietnamese. They're calling themselves Taiwanese, and the Chinese know the land of Taiwan has always, throughout history, relatively been theirs. So, just like you have President Putin looking at the Ukraine as, this was part of the Soviet Union. This country is part of what made the Soviet Union strong. It was the breadbasket of Europe. You see what I'm saying? We had nuclear facilities there, hence Chernobyl. You see what I'm saying? Didn't happen in Russia. It happened in the Ukraine. You see what I'm saying? So, and that was part of what? The Soviet power grid. You see what I'm saying? When they went to nuclear power. So we have to understand that, in these people's eyes, it's really the Most High hardening their hearts, pursuant to Proverbs 21:1, you see. But in their own eyes, in the world's eyes, you could see how they would say they have a claim. You see what I'm saying? But we know that pursuing Proverbs 21:1, it says the heart of the king is in the hand of the Most High, and he turneth whatsoever he will, like the rivers of water, roughly paraphrasing. So we have to understand the Lord is leading into a third world war, because the U.S. is putting themselves in positions to show that if it be a Russia or a China or even maybe in Iran, you see, which is the Persian, the U.S. isn't really going to intervene in that in that conflict. So right now you have Xi Jinping and the Chinese intelligence apparatus, which the U.S. doesn't have a name for, which is very astonishing. You can name the KGB, you can name the Mossad, you can name all these other things, but name the Chinese intelligence branch. That's how good the Chinese are. Exactly. So, with that being said, the Chinese are looking like, well, if you're not even going to intervene with Russia, a country with the likes of only 150 million people, you see what I'm saying? There's no way on earth, with our advances in hypersonic missile technology, which is, missiles that travel past the sound barrier, times 5, you see what I'm saying? With their ability to industrialize, they're building skyscrapers in fucking, like, in a matter of a week, you see what I'm saying? And they had a whole documentary on it, you know what I mean? They have an infrastructure that allows them to, I just read an article last week saying they've created a new class of nuclear submarine, just to see if they could do it. You see what I'm saying? So they're competing on all levels. The Chinese, space agency literally just recently, well, a while back, 2020, I believe, sent some fucking astronauts into outer space, The Chinese are building their own space station. You see what I'm saying? And so on and so on. So what you have is Xi Jinping and then the Moabite, the Chinese, the modern day Moabite, you see what I'm saying? believing that they are the supreme power of the world. You see what I'm saying? And granted, this is why we say knowledge puffeth up, because you see, they have been increased in knowledge, they've been increased militarily, they've been increased economically, excuse me, but they're not the sons of the Most High. They're not built to be righteous. So they assume, hey, well, this is putting us in position to overtake the U.S. So why not take the U.S.? You see, and but the way they do this is through proxy wars. You see, so they're getting ready to invade Taiwan, which has been a U.S. ally for decades. You see what I'm saying? Just like the Ukraine was, pitching itself to be a U.S. ally. But the U.S. what? It has to handle it lightly because Crimea and a good part of the whole of Ukraine is right there by Russia. It borders Russia, so therefore, you see, the U.S. is not going to get in all-out conflict on the borders of Russia, because what does that do? That gives the Russian the ability to call the U.S. an aggressor, which what? It musters the population and it mobilizes them to be like, look at these Western imperialists, trying to take over, our land, So instead of it being, well, we don't see what's wrong with the Americans. They do trade with us. They're not encroaching on our lands. Putin has, the ability to be like, well, look, you see what I'm saying? So the U.S. has to tread carefully, and being that it has to tread carefully, it can be manipulated just like the U.S. media will manipulate and call us terrorists, even though we're harmless people who are, for the most part, barely getting by, because the Most High is, chastising us, you see, and trying to build us up to be the men that, He created us to be, whether that be for salvation or destruction. You see what I'm saying? Um, we're totally harmless. We don't have any control of our destinies. We don't hire, we don't fire, none of that. But the U.S. media, just through not even rhetoric, but the reading of the Bible and the correct deciphering of the scriptural truth of the Bible will demonize us. So how much more, a foreign adversary of the U.S. will demonize them? You see, the Most High makes things turn upon your own head. That might that you think you have can be the detriment. You see what I'm saying? This is why in the old Western movies, you always the cowboys always feared, you know, um, you know, um, killing a man, in front of their kid, or just in general that kid coming back to avenge their father, when they became a man, and they were in their full strength, you see? Because what? You're still aging, you're still getting older, and let's say, 25 years go by, you're in your 50s, man, you're not fucking running, jumping, and shooting as fast, you see? And that young man is now just at his prime. See what I'm saying? So this is kind of a metaphor for, China. See, we were that young, tough, strapping fucking cowboy, the U.S., and we've been beating up on everybody, essentially, kind of killing them. You see what I'm saying? And now, pursuing the book of Obadiah, this is why, he's being made small among the heathen, and he's greatly despised, roughly paraphrasing, because, um, um, these kids have grown up with that hatred. You see what I'm saying? Just like we talked about at camp this past week, Sons of Yasharala camp. We talked about how these kids in the Middle East, they've grown up in the midst of a war with, the U.S. occupying their country. So it's easier for them to have that hatred, than those kids that, maybe are men in their 30s now, about our age. You see what I'm saying? Or a little bit older, who they can call the U.S. the great Satan, but these kids are like, no, they are the true Satan, because look, man, they invaded our country, they destroyed everything, these buildings aren't rebuilt, you see, they killed my family, they killed my uncle, they killed my mom, my sister, my brother, this, that, and the third, when before it was just, rhetoric, you see what I'm saying? So, all these things are, like I like to think of it a melting pot of destruction, you know, because just like the Roman Empire, just like the Mongolian Empire, the more you gain and the more acclaim you have, the thinner you spread yourself. You see, if Rome kept most of its might in Rome, you see what I'm saying? It might have lasted somewhat longer, but because it spread itself thin, it had these treaties with certain nations. Hey, we'll go to battle for you. Da 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 da. This, that, and the third. You spread yourself thin, as you see in the U.S. do. You see what I'm saying? There's no way that the U.S. could, realistically, given that we know the scriptures, beat two nuclear powered nations unless these nations, for some reason, just got rid of their nuclear power. And now you have many nations, including North Korea, including, India, including Pakistan. Iran doesn't have the ability at the Persian, but you have too many nations that are not um, gonna take that shit from the U.S. This is why the SEAL Team 6 raid. There's a lot of questions behind that because there was intelligence that Bin Laden was in Pakistan. And we know as U.S. soldiers, you're taught, even in training, that they're gonna harass and fight you, and they took the U.S. out of the Korengal Valley, which was probably the bloodiest part of the entire 20-year conflict. In the Korengal Valley with all those forward operating bases such as Restrepo, Cop Keating, and so on and so forth. Um, because they use those mountain ranges and they cross right over into Pakistan. Now, why can't the U.S. go get them out of Pakistan? Because Pakistan is not Afghanistan. Pakistan has nuclear missiles. Pakistan has military academies. Pakistan has a legitimate police force. You see what I'm saying? So there's a lot of questions behind that raid, and we have to understand that the Most High does these things to make his word come to light. You see what I'm saying? And you have to have eyes to see and ears to hear. You see what I'm saying? And that's why this article says was rumors of war. So I started to read, and it says the Chinese military deployed forces all around the island of Taiwan over the weekend in a set of large-scale military drills that one Chinese military analyst called a rehearsal of possible real action. So Xi Jinping and the Chinese are always very adept at keeping their cards close to their heart. You see what I'm saying? But they don't use this kind of wording unless they are very, very, very intent on, doing something. Because for the longest, even into the early 2000s, China was all about, kind of nurturing that trade agreement, that relationship that it's had with the U.S. that has waxed them so rich. This is why it says, those that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee, pursuant to the book of Obadiah. Let's actually get that real quick, you see, before we get Matthew 24. um, this is Obadiah 1:7. All the men of thy confederacy, which is a partnership, an agreement, concord, brought thee even to the border. The men that were at peace with thee have deceived thee. And yes, for a long time, it's only since probably maybe 2000, and we could say at the middle to latter part of the Obama administration. So 2008 to 2010 is kind of when they kind of sort of trying to change face. But before that, look at the Bush administration. You heard nothing of. You see, Clinton administration, nothing of. Bush Senior, nothing of really. You see, so let's read on. Those who are at peace with thee have deceived thee and prevailed against thee. They that eat thy bread have laid a wound under thee. How much U.S. dollars does China really have? You see, what do? We purchase their goods with U.S. dollars. What does that do? That's only boosted, what is it, the yen? Over the past decades, man. Because we have to think, even when, I'm 28, and when I was a kid, China was, we knew they were good at innovation, kind of like, Ammon in Japan. But they were they were not a fledgling economy, but their dollar was nowhere near, and those of you who may be older than me, from being a child, the Chinese dollar was never this powerful before. We never looked at China as, oh, they're an adversarial threat. You see what I'm saying? Because it wasn't time. You see what I'm saying? But this is how the word of the Most High is true, because right around the Obama administration, that dollar and the inflation of it, you see what I'm saying, being given to the Chinese, and then that was right after um, the 80s, which our economy got gutted, and the most of the manufacturing and distribution and all those kind of good jobs that were, which had us with an American middle class, went to China. This is why the Chinese have a middle class. You see what I'm saying? And the U.S. doesn't. You have the working poor, and you literally have the wealthy. You see what I'm saying? And by working poor, I mean those that are even making $120,000 but have to pay a mortgage. You are working poor. You see what I'm saying? Yes, you have a little bit more money to spend, but if you have not outright bought your house, you don't own it. The bank owns it. You see what I'm saying? So we're talking about people anywhere under $200,000. You are working poor. You can't take 6 months off of work and go do what you want to do. That is working poor. You are a slave to your job. But anyways, they that ate thy bread have laid a wound under thee. And eating thy bread is taking your money, man. And this is what you're seeing. The Chinese were expert at playing the U.S. They're fucking selling you cheaply made toys, magnificently made iPhones, laptops, this, that, and the third. And now the U.S. is coming to realize, hey, we fucked up, man. They've probably had a back door into a lot of our infrastructure for decades, man. Decades, man. You see what I'm saying? And now there's worry from the NSA and these different government agencies that, hey, we can't just buy all this tech from China and not assume that they don't have key loggers, just to see what you type. You see what I'm saying? You can redact anything from a computer, but if it was made in China and they have a keylogger that goes back to some server that you've never heard of, because you're not going to sit there and read every line of code. You see what I'm saying? Nobody does, and machine code is fucking and damn near impossible to read as humans. You see what I'm saying? So I say that to say this. I know I'm long winded, but I like to explain things thoroughly. Um, Being that said, you see what I'm saying? Now the NSA doesn't want to panic the public, but they also kind of want to put it out there. But that's the thing. The U.S. has always had to a lot of their population. The Russian just has their population in check. Hey, you want to fight the government? We'll fucking fight. Same with the Chinese and Xi Jinping. You just do something in the Chinese Communist Party if you want to. Be one of 1,000,000,004.4 people over in China when you guys substantially outnumber the government and say something against Xi Jinping. There's gonna be a fucking group of white vans that pull up at your house. They're gonna fucking go up in there with SWAT team gear and snatch your ass the fuck out of that house. You're gonna be in some rural part of China that you've never been to before in a fucking labor camp. You see what I'm saying? So I say that to say this is the Chinese government doesn't have to lie to their people. You see, it's not necessarily that they rule in righteousness, but they rule with a more iron fist, so to speak. Because we're talking about it kind of reminds me of the feet in the statue in the book of Daniel. Not necessarily saying that that's what they are, but some of the nations were stronger than the other. As opposed to as you go up higher in the statue, it was just outright power. But anyway, so we talked about possible military action. On Monday, the Chinese People's Liberation Army, the PLA, announced its Eastern Theater Command organized maritime aerial conventional missile and other forces around Taiwan and carried out drills around the island from Monday to Sunday, or from Friday to Sunday, Slovakia. The Eastern Theater Command said the drills were intended to test and improve the joint operations capability of multiple services and arms. While Taiwan governs itself as an independent nation, China considers the island a part of its territory, and Chinese officials have repeatedly discussed reunification with the island, including by means of military force. So they know. This is why they call it Chinese Taipei. The Chinese state-run Global Times publication reported maritime aerial conventional missile and other forces participated in drills around Taiwan. During the drills, Chinese Huawei aircraft carrier deployed east of the island, while a large number of Chinese aircraft and warships carried out drills to the island's west. Taiwan's Ministry of Defense claims to have spotted 31 Chinese aircraft. The latest drills are like a rehearsal of possible real action, but only a partial one. Song Zaipong ship Ping, a Chinese military expert, told the Global Times, "We have the The Wang aircraft carrier group positioned east of Taiwan, the People's Liberation Army not only cuts off possible reinforcements from foreign interference forces, but also launches attacks on military bases east of Taiwan Island. So essentially, they're testing the waters, and they're getting ready. You see what I'm saying? Don't ever just think that militaries go to basic training and then you go to a unit and you just deploy. No, you are in a constant state of training. We have training cycles in the U.S. military. So all these other countries do what the U.S. has done in order to make themselves a more efficient and better standing army. Just like you saw in the Bin Laden raid movie. What is it, Act of Valor or whatever. They rehearsed that shit for months. You see what I'm saying? Months beforehand. And that was one raid. But it was a critical one, so to speak. You see what I'm saying? And they probably wanted to get their fucking story right. But that's besides the point, The point is, the U.S. looking weak in its backing of the Ukraine has made, other countries realize that it can't back up with it can't its road to check its ass can't cash. So the Chinese know they don't want to go head up with the U.S. doesn't want to go head up with China or head up with Russia. So now if you have Russia taking what it wants and China taking what it wants, the whole global scale shifts in favor of Russia and China, which are what? Allies. Therefore, the beast is going to hate the whore because the whore can't protect the beast anymore. It can't keep the world drunk on its wine. You see what I'm saying? So let's get the scriptures and we'll call it. You see what I'm saying? And how about Shemel Shirat is this edified you in some way. But let's get the Salaki, the book of Matthew, because this is the time of the beginning of sorrows. When the U.S. can't spin the narrative, when the U.S. can't support its allies, when the U.S. dollar is crumbling before our eyes. You see what I'm saying? People are fucking fickle, man. And in American society, it's easy to say, oh yeah, people suck, and you can't trust anybody nowadays. Well, guess what? That goes for the whole world, man. You see, and when the whore can't fucking protect everybody, the beast is gonna turn on her. Why not? And ye shall hear of wars, and this is Matthew 24:6, and it says, you shall hear of wars and rumors of wars. So you have actively Russia and Ukraine. Now you have China on the border of Taiwan, ready to take this motherfucker at any moment. You see that you be not troubled, for all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. And then real quick before we continue with the scriptures, think about the position that you have the Taiwanese in. They want to make money off the U.S. You see, a lot of the jobs that we think go to China actually go to Taiwan. You see, the Taiwanese have always been the buffer that kept the U.S. sanctions on China from really having a substantially stronger effect. You see what I'm saying? Oh, you don't want to buy from China? Okay, we'll just give it to Taiwan and say it comes from Taiwan. This is what they've done. This is why China wants Taiwan. You see what I'm saying? Because then you have to outright do deals with fucking China. You're not going to get the made in Taiwan. You're going to get the, yeah, motherfucker, it comes from China like it always has. You see what I'm saying? And think about the fact that the population speaks Mandarin in Taiwan. When you're at war with your own brother and the motherfucking devil that, was supposed to have your back doesn't, because it's in fear of starting World War III, because it wants to what? It wants to continue to spoil, so it's not spoiled pursuant to the scriptures. You're going to be fucked. And then you're going to be like, well, why am I fighting my brother? Why don't we just become a part of China? What's the big deal? You see what I'm saying? And then then right there, Xi Jinping is one. You see what I'm saying? It's easy. Just like with the Ukrainian. This is why you have people in the Ukraine that say, no, we are Russian. We speak their language. You see what I'm saying? They established us as a country before the Soviet Union collapsed, and then we became independent. We were really Russian. You see what I'm saying? And so on and so forth. So they have an innate advantage anyway. It's not like they're going to London and taking London. You see what I'm saying? And these countries are going to start to realize that. They're not going to Germany, and China's not in Germany like, we're going to fucking take you over, nigga. You belong to us. Neither is Russia. And eventually, the beast is going to see that the whore is what she is, a whore. Be like, man, you're fucking causing innocent bloodshed, this, that, and the third, man. But anyways, all these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. So that doesn't mean the end has happened, because why? The word of the Most High cannot come back void. So whatever he says is going to happen. So if he talked about in Revelation 13 and 16 that he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive the MOTB, whether they're in the right hand or their forehead, then that must happen. You see, and that's going to happen because you have the globalist bankers trying to figure out a way to reassert and establish dominance. And if it's not going to be through the U.S. fractional reserve petrodollar, you see what I'm saying? Yeah, look that up. The U.S. fractional reserve petrodollar. You see what I'm saying? So you can't just print $10 billion and then off of the so-called credit or faith, make, what is it, like 94 billion can be made out of one transaction from the Fed of $10 billion. And you can look that up in the movie Zeitgeist, by the way, because I know I kind of butchered that. Um, you're gonna have to, figure out a way to control the population, control the masses. You see what I'm saying? And what better way than, Revelation 13 and 16, man? Use your own mind. You see what I'm saying? Um, for nation shall rise against nation, which we're seeing, and kingdom against kingdom. You see, they speak the same language, y'all. And there shall be famines and pestilences, and we're seeing that they're the literal intentional sabotage of the food supply chain, which goes to show you, hey, man, these motherfuckers, you got to take that wool off your eyes. These politicians, these elite government officials, these higher ups, these global bankers give a fuck about collateral damage. Collateral damage is just an opportunity for the globalist bankers that have substantial interests in construction companies, in engineering firms, in architectural firms to rebuild in their eyes, to rebuild the desolate places. So collateral damage means nothing. See what I'm saying? It's all about control. The devil knows he has but a short time. You see what I'm saying? So we're in a position where Satan knows he has a short time. He knows his rulership is going to come to an end. He knows he's going to be a slave under Jacob. You see what I'm saying? And then done away with perpetually in 1,000 years. So what does he care about collateral damage and pestilence? So why does the U.S. military, why is it on record that there is a biological weapons lab in Fort Detrick, Maryland? Why is that a thing? Why is there a job called CBRN, which is chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear? See what I'm saying? That's the actual MOS. They handle chemical threats, biological threats, radioactive threats, and nuclear threats. You see what I'm saying? And earthquakes, and I showed you that article at the beginning of the 4.2 that just happened in Yellowstone. And I want to say that there's a volcano there. It might be in Mount St. Helens. I don't quote me on that because I don't really know too much about fucking Yellowstone. But there might be a volcano there, I think, in diverse places. All these things are the beginning of sorrows. You see what I'm saying? And not to mention, like we say, this is just the beginning of sorrows, because some of us will be delivered up, and some of us shall be killed, and you shall be hated for of all nations for my name's sake. And right now, we're hated of by all nations as a people, as a whole. They look at niggers, fucking stupid redskin Native American fucks. You know what I'm saying? You dirty fucking wetbacks. You see what I'm saying? But wait till you're truly hated of all nations. You know, then we know we're closer to the end when they're pushing. Also, in that time, the fucking MOT. You see what I'm saying? And a lot of niggas, if we're gonna be hated of all nations for the Lord's name's sake, as the men of the Lord, it's gonna be tempting for Jake to be like, well, shit, if I take that, they won't hate me anymore. I'll be just like the fucking regular nigga from down the street. But hey, man, you already know there's a sword of destruction that comes after the MOTB. You see what I'm saying? So, hey, you know, it's high time to keep your eyes open. Don't get distracted by the shit in your daily lives. Yes, man, hug your sons and your daughters, man. It's okay to embrace your wife, nigga, but don't be distracted with the daily fucking monotonous grind, man. If you go on a break, man, fucking, be like your fucking coworkers that smoke, man. Go on a break and put your headphones in and walk around the building. Let's say they do a lot of tech companies or construction jobs. Man, take a walk. Hey, boss, I'm trying to be healthy. I'm gonna fucking go take a 10-minute break, walk around the building and shit. They can't say shit about that. And guess what? You're not gonna be a fucking smoker who's gonna take 10 breaks in a fucking day. Hey, I'm taking my 2 breaks, just walk around the building, and my lunch. You see what I'm saying? But fill yourself with His truth, man. Fill yourself with His wisdom, knowledge, understanding, man. And it's gonna help you. It's gonna have you understand that. Look, man, that deadline your boss gave you for fucking this and that, or you didn't meet your quota on this and that. It doesn't mean shit. It doesn't mean shit. This motherfucker is gonna be destroyed by thermonuclear fucking fire, man. And he has no fucking clue. You see? At least you have been given the wisdom, knowledge, and understanding, man. So don't look at it as burdensome. Understand that being in the spirit is beneficial to you. The Lord doesn't give it to motherfuckers that He didn't intend to give it to, man. So if He's giving you the spirit to understand this truth, understand this wisdom, knowledge, understanding, man, embrace that. You know? And I guarantee you, it's gonna break up that monotony. It's gonna break up that grind. You see what I'm saying? It's gonna keep you in the spirit. You're gonna get off of work and be like, "Hey, man, this brother put up a hour long sit down. Let me check it out." But hey, man, look, this shit is gonna speed up at some point, man, and it's not gonna be this slow fucking death march to the fucking end, man. The Most High say He had to shorten the days for the elect's sake, lest there be no flesh left to be saved, man. So the elect are being afflicted, man. And the Most High is only gonna allow that for so long, man. So understand, man, this shit is gonna pick up. This shit is gonna pick up. And in this near future, don't be surprised by things. Understand that this is all the will of the Most High. We're gonna see mass death. We're gonna see famines. We're gonna see, the love of many wax cold because iniquity abounds. Roughly paraphrasing, man. But we have to stay in this word, in this truth, man. Psalms 51. And that's why you do videos, man. Because even if I don't remember to say it throughout the day, in the video when I'm reminding Jake, I say it out loud as well. Hey, take not thy spirit from me, O Lord, cast me not away, Baba Kashai, man. You know, the last thing you want to do is be caught up. Look at it like this, man. You don't want to be caught wearing parachute pants in the '90s when it was all about um, Jordans and some blues, man. You see what I'm saying? Don't be the nigga stuck in the '80s in parachute pants. This old world. When niggas in the '90s is wearing hoodies and fucking and man, hey man, step your game up. You see this? This is a simple, harmless way I could put it, man. Don't be caught up in that old shit, man. This is old, man. This is futile. This is rusted, and this is death, man. Don't be caught up in this life, man. And with that, Baba Gushai, Yahweh, I hope this was edifying to the hopeful elect. I want to give all praise, honor, glory, of course, to Yahweh Ba'ashem, Yahushai Ba'ashem, Habrakak Kodash. Double honors, of course, to the apostles and elders, great millstone that rule well. Honest to you, Akim, out there doing this work with truth and sincerity, presenting bodies a living sacrifice. This is Shalom to the hopeful 1/3, which consists of men, women, and children. Shalom.